الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ونبينا وحبيبنا وقدوتنا ومولانا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Respected brothers and sisters in Islam, first we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala once again. Allah has afforded us and granted us the tawfiq and the ability to perform the Maghrib Salah with Jama'ah. Alhamdulillah. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says one hadith, then when alif al-masjid alifahullah, that the person who loves the masajid, he will earn the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in return. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant the masajid to be beloved to us. Ameen ya Rabbal Alameen. Last week we started Surah Al-Jinn, and we mentioned the opening verses of Surah Jinn where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explains of this group of jinn who initially, the purpose why they were going around, they were looking for the reason why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the reason they could not anymore listen to the malaika when the revelation, or to the malaika, to the conversation of the malaika. So they thought to themselves that something must have happened, and they sent out delegation from amongst the jinn, different groups. And there's one group of jinn eventually arrived at Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam while Rasulullah and his companions are performing the Fajr Salah. And they hear the beautiful recitation of the Quran, and right there and then they accept Islam. Right there and then they accept Islam, this kalam of Allah, and they say that this is the reason why we are blocked, and this is the reason why we cannot hear anymore the conversation from amongst the malaika. And then these jinnat, we spoke about the differences between jinn and ins, and how a person, they are from the unseen. And as Muslims, like how we believe in malaika, we need to believe in the creation of the jinn as well. Because Allah over and over in the Quran, Allah mentions and affirms that Allah has created jinn, Allah has created mankind and malaika. So these are from the unseen that we cannot see them, but they see us. On the day of Qiyamah, we will see them and they won't be able to see us again. So whoever denies the existence of the jinn, that person, the ulama has mentioned, he is out of the fold of Islam, because it's something which Allah has confirmed in the Quran. It's part of our iman. And then these jinnat, after listening to the Quran, and as we've mentioned, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself wasn't aware of the jinnat being there. Allah only afterwards, Allah revealed the surah to him, then it came clear to Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And these jinnat now went back to their people, went back to the other jinnat in their community, and they spoke to them. And from tonight, some of the verses that these verses which you recited, these are some of the statements and the sayings of the jinnat, those group of jinnat that would listen to the Quran. When they came back to their people, they said these things to their community amongst the jinnat. And the ayah, first ayah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala of tonight's, this evening's ayat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, بَعْدَ أَعُوذُ بِاللَّهِ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ الرَّجِيمِ بِسْمِ اللَّهِ الرَّحْمَنِ الرَّحِيمِ. The jinnat are saying, وَأَنَّهُمْ ظَنُّوا كَمَا ظَنَنْتُمْ أَن لَّن يَبْعَثَ اللَّهُ أَحَدًا. And the humans, thought as you, O jinns. The jinn are telling the fellow jinn that the humans thought just like how you thought, just like how we thought, that Allah will never resurrect anyone. And if we remember the previous, especially the different surah in the 30th juz, where over and over Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminds us, and Allah speaks about how the mushrikun, those who denied Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, part of the denial was at the day of resurrection, and the fact that we will be resurrected after death. This is something they couldn't fathom, something they didn't want to believe. And so the jinnah, they are telling their fellow jinn that, these humans, they believe like how we also believe from amongst our people that we will never be resurrected. And then when they deny the resurrection, some ulama has mentioned, this is the the first point when a person commits shirk. Because when you deny the resurrection after death, you deem yourself to be, you're not accountable. And if a person deem himself to be not accountable to anyone, then he will do what he wants. He will please what he wants. He will do whatever pleases him. So this was the first step towards the mushrikeen, ascribing partners unto Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, وَأَنَّا لَمَسْنَا, the jinn continues, وَأَنَّا لَمَسْنَا السَّمَاءَ فَوَجَدْنَاهَا مُلِئَتْ حَرَسًا شَدِيدًا وَشُهُبًا. And that we sought to reach the skies, but we found it filled with stern guards and flames. So these malaika, these jinnat, now referring back to the first point, that why they couldn't hear anymore the conversation of the malaika, the narration of Aisha radiallahu anha confirms that whenever Allah has instructed the malaika with certain decrees and certain duties that they must fulfill, the malaika would then descend to the first heaven, which is above the clouds, first heavens, and here the malaika, they would discuss amongst themselves the certain responsibilities and duties, and certain taqdeer that must take place. And then the jinnat is to listen, as the hadith mentioned, and they will come down to inspire the soothsayers, those fortune tellers amongst them, and they will tell them broken information. And what will the soothsayer do? The soothsayer will tell the people, and they will add, as the Rasul says, they will add 100 lies to it. They will add 100 lies. One of the things might just be something familiar, and the person is now convinced that the soothsayer, the fortune teller, is telling the truth. But there's a whole lot of lies, and that's why Rasul says that if a Muslim goes to a fortune teller and asks him for advice or for any readings or whatever it might be, and this fortune teller then gives him, and he believes what the fortune teller is saying, for 40 days Allah won't accept the salah of that person. So much it is hated by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So as a Muslim, many ahadith speaking about the severity of going to the fortune tellers and sitting and listening to them. And so these fortune tellers, they get the information from the jinnat. وَأَنَّا كُنَّا نَقْعُدُ مِنْهَا مَقَاعِدَ لِلسَّمْعِ فَمَنْ يَسْتَمِعِ الْآنَ يَجِدَ لَهُ شِهَابًا رَصَدًا. Allah says that, and the jinnat now are saying, and that we used to sit at places there and to listen, but if one will try to listen now, you will find flame in ambush for him. Meaning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is his shooting stars, meteors, flaming shooting stars. They will be pelted with these flaming stones out of the samawat. This is the security Allah put in place so that they cannot hear the discussion of the malaika. And they are telling one another, وَأَنَّا لَا نَدْرِي أَشَرٌ أُرِيدَ بِمَنْ فِي الْأَرْضِ أَمْ أَرَادَ بِهِمْ رَبُّهُمْ رَشَدًا. And now the jinnat, they are telling the people, and that we do not know whether this is something which is because of a adhab of Allah coming down, which Allah is blocking us from hearing the conversation of the malaika, or is Allah intending good to happen? Is there some type of good coming? That's why we cannot hear the conversation of the malaika. وَأَنَّا مِنَّا الصَّالِحُونَ وَمِنَّا دُونَ ذَلِكَ كُنَّا طَرَائِقَ قِدَدًا. Allah, the jinnat says, and that some of us are already righteous and some of us are otherwise, meaning they are following the evil desires. So from amongst the jinn, وَأَنَّا مِنَّا الصَّالِحُونَ وَمِنَّا دُونَ ذَلِكَ. From amongst the jinn, there are the pious jinn and there are the evil jinn. Just like how there is between me and you as human beings, you find good people, pious people, and you find evil people as well. So amongst the jinnat, there are those who are righteous and those who are evil, just like the humans. وَأَنَّا ظَنَنَّا أَن لَن نُعْجِزَ اللَّهَ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَلَن نُعْجِزَهُ هَرَبًا. And that we now believe that we can never frustrate Allah on this earth. Imagine the jinnat is telling the fellow jinnat, the reality of the situation is no matter how much you want to make shirk, no matter how much you want to turn against Allah, you will never frustrate Allah. We will never be able to frustrate Allah, because if the entire dunya were to turn against the belief and the oneness of Allah, it won't decrease of the magnitude of the greatness of Allah, not even a little. Nothing it will do to Allah. So the jinnat, they realize this. And said, we can never frustrate Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but nor can we escape the adhab and the punishment of Allah when it comes. Imagine this is just by listening once to the Quran. وَأَنَّا لَمَّا سَمِعْنَا الْهُدَىٰ آمَنَّا بِهِ فَمَنْ يُؤْمِنْ بِرَبِّهِ فَلَا يَخَافُ بَخْسًا وَلَا رَهَقًا. And that when we heard the guiding discourse, meaning the Quran, we believed in it. The jinn is telling the other jinn, we believed in it. So if one believes in Allah, he will have no fear of either any of his reward being decreased or any excess in punishment. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always gives in reward greater than what we do in action. Because Allah's beautiful qualities is ash-shakur. We do something small, Allah is willing to give us great reward for it. And they say that Allah will never give us anything short in the reward, and neither will Allah grant our punishment to be increased over and above what it's supposed to be. And then they mention, وَأَنَّا مِنَّا الْمُسْلِمُونَ وَمِنَّا الْقَاسِطُونَ فَمَنْ أَسْلَمَ فَأُولَٰئِكَ تَحَرَّوْا رَشَدًا. And that some of us are Muslims and some of us are unjust. So those who submitted to Islam have found out the right path. Again, they're emphasizing the fact that those who have accepted Islam from amongst us, the jinnat and the humans, we've submitted to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they have found the right path that will guide them towards the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In this verse is the last verse which the jinnat now is discussing with the community, with the other jinn. This is the last point they mention. وَأَمَّا الْقَاسِطُونَ فَكَانُوا لِجَهَنَّمَ حَطَبًا. If they say, as for the unjust and the evil amongst us, they've become the firewood of Jahannam. Imagine Allah says, they will become the firewood of Jahannam. They will become the fuel of Jahannam. Not only the jinn, but the mankind as well. Even though in this the ulama has mentioned that though this ayah, it confirms that the jinnat, they will also be punished. Even though they were made out of fire, doesn't mean Jahannam cannot burn them. The hadith of Rasulullah, Jahannam itself, some person in Jahannam is seeking protection from Jahannam itself because of the heat. So where the jinnat, just because they're made out of fire, doesn't mean they are immune to fire. They will also be in this punishment in the Jahannam, as Rasulullah Allah is mentioning it. They will be the firewood of the fuel of Jahannam. And they will be accountable for the deeds, just like me and you are accountable for our deeds. And so, my beloved brothers and sisters in Islam, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us tawfiq and understanding, to make us of those who will reflect over these ayat. Wa akhir da'wan alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.